Hey Game Changers, Barry Magliotti here, and in this video I want to talk about how overwhelm is the enemy of progress, and I opt for progress over perfection. Now ultimately what I found is there's two kind of core things that stop people from really progressing in their business and their life, and it causes them a lot of additional overwhelm. And the first and foremost is lack of resources. So in resources we're talking about people, time and other supportive resources to get you to where you want to go. And the second one is a conscious or unconscious lack of belief in oneself. And this is where we touch on again the inner game and the importance. It's interesting because for a long time I watched a lot of business coaches and copped a lot of shit because they were all pushing marketing and sales strategies and building teams and scaling and things like this, and sure, their clients were getting results. But yet, a few months later, some of our clients started to release the results that they were getting. And, I had a lot of people come to me then and ask, how are we doing it? How are we able to grow these companies 4x up to 12 times revenue and profits in, sometimes under 6 months, while also reducing the time that the business owner spent in the business? And, honestly, the secret, if you'd call it that, is that we focused heavily on the inner game. There's no way in hell that we know anybody's business better than they know themselves, but we do know human psychology, we do know human behavior, we do know the energetics and the internal workings of a human being, a human being. And we also understand that once that's functioning properly, they're able to get that divine guidance. They're really able to tap into their intuition in a whole new level and move their business forwards, and the right people and the right resources show up. But I want to kind of break this down into three different areas for you. So we talked about two kind of core things. Number one is lack of resources and lack of time and lack of people. And the second one we're talking about lack of belief in oneself. But I think they're kind of two the same, because there's never really a lack of resources. There's a lack of resourcefulness. And for many years, I used to be that guy that people would come up to and be like, oh, hey, Barry, I've got this great opportunity, or hey, I'd love to help doing this. And I'd be like, I can't, I'm too busy. And I was always that guy that was just too busy. I was too busy to pick my kids up from school. I was too busy to drop them off. I was too busy to go to their assemblies. I was too busy to help my partner with things that she needed help with. I was too busy to look after myself, to eat healthy, to exercise, to go to the gym, because I developed a story around how busy I was, and it was quite egotistical. Yet what happened is that story that started off a long time ago became a belief of mine, to where I just never even questioned it. In the beginning, I think that I questioned how busy I was, but I was in a massive state of overwhelm, and it was a different belief that created it in the first place for me when I very first started one of my earlier businesses. But this is the thing, is that if we don't start to question, so step number one is that we need to question all of our assumptions. We need to question what we believe to be true, because ultimately what gets us in trouble is actually not what we don't know. What gets us into trouble is what we know or what we believe that's just simply not true, not accurate. So how often do you actually stop and question the stories that you're telling yourself? How often do you stop and question those beliefs that you seemingly are stuck in, or that have become so ingrained in your system that you're not even aware that they're your beliefs anymore? They've become your reality. So step number one is to question your beliefs. And a little exercise I would invite you to do is, take some time out, spend some time out in nature, or, by the beach, or just somewhere away from technology and people. And just brain dump all the beliefs that you have. Now you can either do it that way, or as things start to come up, as they will after watching this video, and you'll be like, oh, there's one of those things that Barry talked about. Is that true? Is that not true? Write it down. Because when things are stuck inside of our head, we're only able to process it with the same reptilian brain thinking that created that belief in the first place. So we're processing it through a way that's further supporting and embedding that belief in our system. If we write it down, it causes us to process it through different parts of our brain, because we're visually seeing it. So therefore, we can start to question it from a different aspect and different part of our brain than the part that created it. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you notice you're someone that's always running around saying how busy you are, or even saying things like, I never get paid on time, my clients don't appreciate what I'm doing, I can never hire the right staff, just start to write down whatever they are. And then ask yourself the question, what lets me know that that's true? Or how do I know that this is true? And that could be followed with, if it wasn't true, what would I like? If this belief, this understanding that I have was not true, what would I want instead? And just for a moment, allow yourself to start to think about and feel and to experience what it would be like if that didn't exist. If people started paying you on time, or you started having more time to spend with your kids. Because ultimately we always use what's available to us. And if what's available to us is these shitty belief systems, we're going to use them. If what's available to us is the chance to stop and reflect, we're going to use that. So make it available to you. My business never grew so quick as to when I started having time out. You might say, oh, well, it's very easy for you, Barry. You've got a high-performing team and you've been in business for a while. Yeah, but it wasn't always like that. When I first decided to take time out, actually was when things were most hectic, when I hardly had a team, I had a million priorities, I was wearing a trillion hats, and it burnt me out. And so I stopped and stepped back, and it wasn't until I stepped back that I was able to see the business differently and see where I was going wrong, or see where there's areas for improvement. And I jumped back in, made the changes, and sure enough, a few months later I was super busy, burned out again, stepped back out. And it was the second or third time that I had the realization, what if I actually chose to step out more? So the second point I want to talk about is actively scheduling time for you to step out of your business without your laptop, without your phone, without your iPad, and just think about your business. Think about your life. Question whether or not you're on course to achieve what you want to achieve. Because I meet a lot of business owners that go into business to have more money and have more time, yet months and years later, they're just stuck in business paying the bills. They're just in survival mode, and they could have got paid more working for someone else and had more leave. Right now, I don't know if that's you right now, but if it is, I'm letting you know that's not why you're in business. You're not in business to be working more hours than you could hire for someone else. You're not in business to not pay yourself and pay everyone else first. You're in business to have more freedom, more fun, more fulfillment. And if that's not happening for you right now, something's got to change. So point number 2, schedule regular time to step out of your business. One thing that was really profound for me is that I started having Fridays off. Now, if I woke up on a Friday morning and I didn't feel like working because I was a bit worn out, I'd do that. I tend to get really consumed with what I'm doing and sometimes spend a lot of hours doing it because I enjoy it, but it's not healthy. So, my team knows that I'm not contacting them on a Friday. If I choose to reach out to them, it's my choice, but they're not to call me. Fridays are my day to do how I will. If I wake up and I feel like doing some project-based work for the company, I'll do that. If I want to go and get a massage, I'll do that. But Fridays are my day to kind of check in with how I'm at, where I'm at, and where I want to insert my time. And then once a month, I schedule a half a day specifically to think about the company. And once every year, I schedule 2 days away from the company and away from everybody else, all external influences, to just stop and think and ponder. Okay, so step number 1, write down all those beliefs, all those things that come through to you now. Step number 2 is actively schedule time off and schedule time out of your business. And step number 3 is proper planning. Now, I'm not sure if you can relate, but I meet a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners that are very good at being attracted by the shiny thing and taking action, but doesn't necessarily always mean that their action is purposeful. And one big epiphany that I had was recently, I always tend to take on board more than I can chew at any one time, and I took on board 2 massive projects. One was to build out a whole entire new marketing campaign. The other one was do a little pivot within our current offering to add more value to our members and change a bunch of stuff around. And I started working on them, and within the space of a day, I was completely overwhelmed. And so I took some time to sit down and map the whole thing out into our project management software, Asana. And I felt more overwhelmed because every time I logged in, I sent all these red dates and I sent all these lists of things to do. And for me, I found that I'm highly visual. And I don't enjoy being around my computer. And so rather being stuck by the paradigms of the way that I should do things, I decided to go, okay, if I was to create a perfect structure of how I'd plan and execute something, what does that look like? And it might seem a bit silly, but all I did was I wrote a long list of things down, and then I categorized them into a couple of categories. So I wrote down basically a long to-do list, And I had a couple of categories. One was the main overarching project. So let's just call it Opulence version 2.0. Then I had subcategories. So, I wanted to make changes around the Facebook group and the management there, around our members portal, around onboarding clients, around the actual coaching, and around booking even more experts and events and things to happen. And so they become subcategories. And then I listed under each of those subcategories all the tasks, all the to-dos that were required to complete the vision I had for each of those categories. And once I had them categorized, I just listed them all out on sticky notes, and I made each subsection a different color. I stuck them all up on a window, and then from there, what I would do is every day, the night before, I would select 3 things only I wanted to work on, and I would pull those 3 sticky notes off. They'd go on my desk, or they'd go in front of my desk, and that's all I'd work on. And I hated this to start with because I'm not a planner. And what I started noticing is I started to really enjoy completing these tasks and to-dos and moving them off the side. Now, when there was things for me to delegate to my team, I would load them onto Asana, I'd date them and assign them to a team member. But for my own stuff, I had them on Asana, but I wouldn't check in on Asana daily. I would check in on Asana once a week, tick off the things that I was done, so there's an overarching kind of, I could keep note of where things were. But the sticky notes really helped me from a visual aspect to be able to create massive momentum, and I got these projects done in a super quick time. Like, the sort of things that maybe take you 1 to 3 months to do, I got done in 2 weeks, just because I started to get so inspired by that constant immediate gratification of achieving things, rather than being overwhelmed by looking at the whole thing. And someone once said to me, Barry, how do you eat an elephant? And quite simply, it's one bite at a time. Another little story, the lady that I'm doing some mentoring with in Romania, and she noticed she started to lose a massive amount of passion for her business and momentum, and she wasn't getting things done, and she's turning up on calls and wasn't doing things. And I was like, how are you managing the projects? How are you managing, what you're doing? And she's like, it's all in my head. I was like, it's all in your head. Like, it's massive. She's creating a non-for-profit around stopping child trafficking throughout Romania. And I was like, you're managing all that in your head? She's like, yeah. And I was like, girl, you just need to get it out. Like, go and spend some time just to write down everything that's inside of your head. I'm talking all the complaints with your relationship, all the stuff with your business, all the stuff with your job. Like, just write it all down, get it out of your head. Because often unconsciously, we're minding all these things inside of our mind and our body and our being, because there's no way to organize them, and we can't rely on this, on our brain, to organize them. And so a few days later, I get a couple of Facebook messages from her, and she created 6 different mind maps just on a project alone from her head. And her partner's like, holy hell, was that all in your head? No wonder you haven't been there for me. So if you're someone that tends to just kind of take a lot of action, what I'd recommend is point number 3. I know I'd maybe dragged on a little bit, but really spend the time to start to put things out, because although you might not enjoy it to start with, it might not feel like progress, you'll make a lot more progress moving forwards. Now, if you're the other end of the spectrum and you're someone that spends way too much time micromanaging and putting things out, I'd recommend the opposite. I recommend you that second part, where every day just pick 3 things you're going to work on. All right, and if you get to the end and realize something's not right, or something's not perfect, or not the way you want it, you can always make changes. But as I always say, that progress is far greater than perfection. So to progress and beyond, trust you guys enjoyed this video, and if we can assist you with any of this, by all means, book a scale session with one of the teams, and we can definitely work out which area of weakness is it for you. Is it an inner game stuff? Is it an outer game stuff? We can certainly provide you with the strategies and solutions to move forward and achieve massive results in your business and in your life. Thanks very much for watching to the end, and look forward to seeing you next one. Bye-bye.